So for our first record, let's go back to our first record. We had 3 number 1 songs on that, right? So there was Where There's Faith, He Will Be There For You, right? That was number 1. And Couldn't We Stand? Yeah. 3 songs. I mean, we all thought Stay Forever was going to be huge. Yeah. It wasn't.
I was sick as a dog, too.
Yeah, you were sick on that. We listened to that last night. We listened to Do Right.
Yep. Oh, I mean, not God's love will stay forever.
Yeah. And then, okay, so that was successful. That first year was a blur.
Oh, yeah.
Because we did, what you said it earlier, we did like 250 shows, 60 shows.
But we did probably from January to August, all the shows with Truth.
Yeah.
While the album came out.
That's right.
Spring.
That's right.
So like we didn't get a whole lot of time off.
And so this was kind of this was the pattern we would fall into, and it was our lives, was we would tour, make a record, tour, make a record, tour. We never really took a break. And so, I mean, we're touring pretty heavy, and we're already prepping for Face the Nation.
Yeah.
And Face the Nation, I got to look back at that. It's not one I don't think people talk about a lot.
Yeah.
I've been listening back to it. I think it's a really good record. Like, I can hear the vocal growth and the songwriting growth, the just our performance, like our performance had stepped up.
Yeah.
Because we had to, right?
Yeah.
And you can hear it in Face the Nation.
Yeah.
And so there were some pretty big songs on that. I remember, obviously the first single was A Man You'd Write About. And we had brought back Chris Harris, of course, Don Cook, who would be with us for a lot of the albums and co-wrote a ton of songs for us. And who else was?
We added Reed Arvin.
Reed Arvin, right.
That's right. He replaced Jonathan David Brown.
That's right. So it was just those 3, right?
Yeah.
So I remember being with Reed, and we were recording the lead for Man You'd Write About, and that was when the first Iraq War started. Yeah. We were watching on television.
Oh, wow.
And the bombs were dropping on Iraq.
Desert Storm.
Yeah, it was Desert Storm.
From George.
What was the name of the studio? The big round building.
Universal. United.
United. That's the studio because we were working.
That's right, because we were way up there.
We were working with Reed that night.
Hummingbird Studio.
That's Hummingbird. That's right.
Yeah, Hummingbird.
Right.
Yeah,
it looked like had a coffin above the console.
And I just remember. Did Reed buy his Fairlight on that album? Was it
Sinclavier?
Sinclair,
and he had. Now, I think
he already had it.
He already had that thing.
I just remember.
But it was at the album that we were helping him move all of his gear.
We were the cartage.
Well, we were moving it was
into his Maxima. I did that so much.
Yes.
Oh my, his ADAT system.
Because he would move it back and forth.
Yeah.
He would move it. Yeah. It was just hilarious.
Did anybody bother to count how many studios we were at with Reed?
Oh,
because he would find the cheapest hole in the wall place.
Yeah.
And then he had that multi-track machine, that 8M or whatever it was. And I remember on several occasions, me and Marty pulling that sucker out of the back.
Absolutely. And then he got not the A or the B in Omni, he got the C. And you remember? And he still was like, man, what is that noise? And we kept getting around the mic, and he kept bringing these huge things, these like gobos of foam. It looked like Stonehenge, you remember? And we're all like,
we're trying. Because you could hear everybody talking outside because it was a cheap studio. And it was like, we're just trying. Well, I remember even United Artists, or whatever that round building. And Hummingbird. I just remember, because not only did Reed have a spot there, also Chris Harris and Mark Heimerman.
Mm-hmm.
We worked in that same building with them. Don had a different spot that he was using. He didn't have a place. He was using Great Circle.
But I have video footage I just found of him finishing one of my songs on the Christmas album.
Yeah.
Travis Laws came to visit.
Yeah.
And David Cleveland was there because he was doing some guitar, and we were all up there in the Hummingbird. And that was
with Don.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was after we were at Classic forever.
Yeah.
And then he had to get some other things. We finished it up at Hummingbird.
Which now, looking back, I'm like, I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, we were coming in off the road just trying to get it done.
Yeah,
that's right.
We were like, where in the world are we going today?
Right.
Yeah, those were crazy days. I remember it was just a blur. Like we just weren't a part of. We were helping choose the songs, and then one of the big things was we were wrestling around with who was going to lead each song.
Right.
And
That second album was a big album.
it was.
It's bigger than because you look at A Man You'd Write About, you look at
He Never Changes.
He Never Changes.
Yeah, that was a big hit.
Why was
Oh,
on that
that's
album.
right.
Over the Horizon was a number one song. We had
That
4
was on
number
that.
one
I don't know
songs.
why I keep thinking Over the
forgot we
Horizon
had
was
that.
on the Basics of Life.
Here's the
album.
thing. We had 4 number one songs on that album.
Yeah.
And here's like, this is kind of insider trading information that deals with Kirk. Seriously, what we had was the first few albums. First album, you had a number one vocally leading. Marty did, I did. Second album, me, you, and Marty did it as well.
Uh-huh.
We realized Kirk being such an incredible vocalist. When we went in,
I had been overlooked.
you had been overlooked. No, it was like, how in the
And
world?
Joy would not hear
Yeah,
of it.
right. My mama called him. No.
But the thing is, so then the conversation from Benson and even internally, and even with Don Cook and I was, man, we got to find something, and that is what basically inspired the search for Basics of Life.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the night that you called me. Marty and I had been roommates, and then Marty got married, and I moved to a single apartment. At 11 o'clock at night, you call me because you and Don Cook were
The
at the
Night's
Night's
Inn.
Inn, about a mile and a half from me. He says, man, you got to
Red
come.
floors,
The
purple
beautiful-
What a
drapes.
beautiful Night's
skanky
Inn.
place.
The,
that
vel- the Velvet Elvis or the
Every room is a first floor room. That's their marketing.
And so I went in there, and Don had all of his sequencing gear and keyboards in there, and he pushed the play button, and you sang Basics, and we all knew that was
Big
a big song. Even I did.
And I remember we were talking about this earlier that I believe it was at the Fairhope Civic Center or Chamber of Commerce or whatever that was
Civic Center.
in Fairhope, Alabama.
Yeah.
And we premiered that song before it was released.
Yeah, but okay, let's back up for a
Okay.
second. Excuse me. Let's back up because remember for the Face the Nation, like all of the, we premiered that album in Nashville too at First Baptist downtown.
Right.
Tim Ranson put together all the video content
Oh
to
my
show on the back
gosh,
screen.
that's
Remember?
right.
We'd hired him,
Oh,
and we were
wow.
doing something that had not been done. It was actually cutting edge. We had a projector that was projecting the videos that we'd shot that were like for A Man You'd Write About, for He Never Changes,
Mm-hmm.
for
Over the Horizon.
How about that?
Which can I just say, I hated doing videos.
Oh, I did too. Well, remember, it was weird
hated
because
doing music videos.
you could go back and look at some of that footage, but that video projector would project on our faces, and you could kind of see, like, along with the spotlight, you'd see like images crossing over. It was kind of weird.
I just
Well,
remember. Oh, go ahead.
It was our psychedelic era.
We all hated doing videos until Stephen Yake jumped into
That's
the
true.
mix.
Yeah.
I would say
He
that's
kind of
true, yeah.
changed the game for us.
He did.
He did.
He
Go
did.
ahead.
I still
And that
didn't
was
like
with
doing
Basics
them.
of Life. That was when he came in.
Yeah. I didn't enjoy it just because I never felt comfortable being filmed. I was just like, I don't know. I didn't like it. I don't like going back and watching them now. In fact, when people that I work with, like some of the younger worship leaders and church musicians I've worked with, when they start discovering For Him videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, please God.
But
No.
on Basics of Life, we did 4 videos. Do you remember the 4 videos?
Yeah. Basics of Life.
Yep. Filmed in Oklahoma
Fend in Tulsa. Yeah.
Tulsa.
Yeah.
and Tulsa.
My mom was in the video.
When It's Time to Go.
Filmed in Oklahoma.
Yeah. In the sand at the sand dunes.
Yeah, and the mesas
That's right.
and everything.
No,
Yeah.
in the Mesas.
Oh, the
the
mesas.
mesas, yeah.
Oh, I
the
know.
sand
the
dunes
mesas
was
was
before the
later
river
on,
came.
that's
Oh,
right. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, the
Okay.
mesas.
Another story.
Stephen Yake
Through His Eyes.
filmed in the Dominican
Dominican Republic. That's right.
And Voice of God.
Republic.
That's right.
California.
That
Filmed
one.
in California.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah,
that was
it is
amazing.
mine, too. It was.
No, it was filmed in Portland.
Portland,
Portland,
Oregon.
Oregon, Natural
on the coast,
Bridge.
on the natural. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That whole beach scene was incredible.
We were out there.
Yeah.
CCM came, did a photo cover for
Yeah.
CCM magazine.
Cameraman tied himself to a tree on that so he wouldn't do a 300-foot drop off the side of the cliff. Remember that?
Gosh.
Pinko, they called him
And he-
Pinko.
I know. And he tells me, dude, can you try not to look like you're scared? And I'm thinking, I don't look up. Dude, I'm sitting on
is
a
only
going.
this
I'm sitting on
wide,
a
and
precipice, and then you've got hundreds of feet down to the water,
Like,
and
I
it's
don't wanna
muddy,
die.
and I've got cowboy boots. So
Wow.
yeah,
they harness him
Well, let's
to
go
a
back.
tree.
Let's go back to basics of
Yeah,
life
yeah.
because I think that's a
Yeah.
big moment. So every artist needs
Yeah.
a career song.
Yeah.
We had that with Where There's Faith.
Yep.
Where There's Faith is a career song for us. But to have a second one in Basics of Life that I didn't set a record. I think it was the first single ever released at that time in Christian music that
was
was
100%
on 100% heavy rotation on every single station
it did.
in the
Oh,
U.S.
wow.
Right.
And I remember we found that out during GMA week.
That's right.
all the genres, pop, AC, hard rock, and
Inspo.
inspo.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just remember them telling us it's 100%. And I was like, I didn't know all of what that meant at the time, but I just remember them saying the song has gone on, and we were all like, it's amazing. Because the thing is, and now I look back and I'm like, okay, the reality is Where There's Faith is a once in a generation song, which is, it just captivated people.
Yeah.
And then we had 4 number 1 songs off of that second album, but those songs didn't gain as much traction as a Where There's Faith. Then Basics of Life on that third album coming out was really important.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And that, and then that Double Awards follow that.
Yeah.
And we were like three straight groups of the year.
Yeah.
New Artist of the Year. And that just,
Which was not what we were chasing.
no, it wasn't.
like-
but
it's
it
like,
adds
wow.
some little validity
Yeah.
to your tours
Yeah.
and your and your singles. When they come to radio now, they get a little more attention. Because now you have this standard. People are expecting something from you.
yeah.
And so that makes me want to go to what I felt like was, I personally think it's the best record we ever made, was The Ride. Just it's my favorite
It's mine too.
because we introduced Michael and Marty into the into the producer conversation,
Yeah.
and it just felt like and because Basics had done so well,
Yeah.
now the label's like, oh, we'll give you a little extra money this time. Who do you want? And we could literally put our dream team together.
Yeah.
So that record was Omar and Don Cook, and
Peter Wolf.
that was our first time with Peter Wolf.
Oh yeah.
That's right, because Wings.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Simi Valley.
Yeah. So Peter Wolf, what people don't know, was a secular producer,
Crazy.
and he produced those big heart records
Oh.
in the '80s. These dreams.
And he
go
also built-
go
he
outside.
did
He actually co-wrote that.
city.
Yeah.
Kenny Loggins.
Built this
He's got
city.
Wang Chung,
the
the
scene.
Wang Chung album.
Wang
Yeah.
Chung.
the
He
scene,
named it. He named it Wang Chung, and he
This-
told us why he named it Wang Chung. Do you even remember that?
Yeah, because it's a Chinese term,
The same time
orchestral term, right?
in the Romantic period in Italy, it would say tutti, which means everybody play and
Yeah.
go for it. In China, in Beijing, at the time, it was Wang Chung,
Everybody Wang
and that's
Chung.
where he got it.
And but go ahead.
The scene in Top Gun where they're all playing in the first one,
Oh.
where they're all playing volleyball.
Yeah.
He
Playing
and
with the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Peter. He had the big Top Gun, poster at the studio. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that again. In the volleyball?
In
What?
the volleyball scene, we're all playing volleyball.
Yeah,
Val
right.
Kilmer and all those guys are playing. The song they're playing
Oh.
is Peter's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Wow.
So that was pretty crazy for us going out to his place in L.A.
Yeah.
And then I mean he's bringing in the Jerry Hay horn section
Oh yeah.
to play on that record. Vinny Colaiuta is playing drums.
Every
Pino Palladino is playing bass. I mean now this is different.
Yeah.
This is really different. And
well,
then
because he's working with all the singers, like when he's telling us, like, hey, you need to be a little bit more like so and so. It's like we're in the studio cutting vocals, and we're like, you work with them,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Dude, I picked up his little black book with all his contacts in it. It was everybody you can think of. The guys from Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Chicago guys,
Yeah, yeah.
all
Tom
the
Petty.
Tom Petty, all the
Well,
guys.
the Chicago guys were finishing up their unreleased album that finally was
Right.
released.
all
years
the
ago.
guys that we idolized, he had worked with and produced.
But there was, so here's one thing I want to bring up about Peter, and we love him, But I remember there was a bridge he wanted us to cross
Yeah.
that we put our foot down, and it was a song called "Between You and Me," right?
Yep.
So tell me about that
Well,
situation.
so I need to connect it to For Future Generations, because Between You and Me, it's a very romantic song. And he said it's a love song between a man and a woman. And I said, well, that's not the intention of the lyric, because the bridge is Jesus is between us, between you and me. Now, if I could go back as a lyricist, like I now kind of look and go, it's probably a little bit too romantic of a song. Like most people kind of go, I mean, like I now look and I'm going, I think Peter might've been right to go, if you want to write a love song that is that romantic lyrically, it's a little weird, And I'm like, yeah, probably. But now I'm a worship pastor and I lead worship. So I'm kind of like, I sing songs that are very intimate between the Lord and I, because that's what worship is. It's intimacy with God. Although I do think that for that song, it has a sax solo, and it's just kind of like, you're thinking, turn the lights down low.
But I remember him saying, hey, if you'll just change the lyric of Jesus to love, we can market this as a secular song. And listening back to it now, I go, that could have been a hit on secular radio.
Oh, it could have been. Well, and here's the thing. Talking of the people that he wanted me to emulate, there's a lot, I won't say all of what he said, but he was like, bang on the desk and tell your wife to bring her your dinner.
Yeah, bring me my tea.
Said, bring me my dinner.
That's
I was like,
what it
I
is.
don't talk to Jody that way. He's like, but you got to be that aggressive with this, the way you approach. But he said, think of this as James Ingram. And so that song literally is me trying to impersonate James Ingram in a bad way. I feel
you did an awesome,
you did really good.
Well, here's the deal: is I didn't think that, because one of the biggest love songs written by in the 70s, 80s, written by Billy Preston. You are so beautiful.
It was very romantic.
No, it was written. I saw him do an interview. It was written as a worship song to the Lord, and the record company picked it up.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
But let me go back to that though, because I always think for us we had an opportunity because of what a lot of art. I mean,
it could have crossed over.
We could have. Amy was crossing over at the time.
Yeah.
Michael W. was crossing over at the time. Nothing against what they were doing, but we didn't feel. Because I know that our label at the time was wanting to push Future Generations into the secular conversation.
Wes Farrell was. He was.
And it didn't really work out, but there was some of that momentum behind who we were and what we were doing. But the problem was we were always giving altar calls.
Well,
every one of our concerts
was
wrapped around sharing the gospel of Jesus. And so we were trying to make music and select songs that were
100%.
that were completing that narrative so that we could push in concert a time of people dedicating their lives to Christ.
So it was hard for us to go there. And even so much so that after our initial meeting with Peter Wolf, when he was saying, because Peter, being a secular producer and just kind of thinking through the lens of, guys, because he really loved us. Like Peter was like, you guys are so talented. I could see you guys being able to do so much more and you could reach more people.
Yeah.
But the way that he said it was even odd for a church group. Like he said, you guys are taking the narrow path. You need to take a much wider road. And we were like, wow.
We're all kind of looking at each other going, oh my God.
You remember that? You remember that, Marty?
Yeah, I do. I remember that.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, because we were all like,
warning, Will Robinson, danger.
And so the funny thing is after that meeting, I'm flying back. Dave Clark has sent me basically the magazine for the Nazarene Church, and it was like, we must be a light for future generations. And I'm flying back on the plane, and he's saying, we need to write this song. And I literally wrote the chorus in response to Peter Wolf. We won't bend and we won't break. We won't water down our faith. We won't compromise.
Isn't that crazy?
That chorus was the beginning of that song, because I just said, I was like, because it just the younger me was like, I don't like what you're saying, even though we're working with you and I think you're amazingly talented. We can't not be who we're called to be.
Yeah.
And out of that was that chorus. And I remember getting back and saying to Don and to Dave, hey, I think I've got a chorus. And of course, we wrote the rest of the song around that. But it was interesting because it was in response to what Peter was saying to us. Like it was literally written on a flight from LA back home.
Wow. And that became our third career song.
It did.
Yeah. And then, so then obviously that record did really well. I remember the Ride tour. That was kind of the first big tour that we...
Dude, that was band.
It was
choreography.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It was.
Big sets.
We had great players.
Was
my gosh.
Was that when we brought the choreographer in?
Oh,
Yes.
Marlene Clayman.
Oh my gosh. You remember that.
Because she was
Incredible.
Mark
Thank you,
Clayman's
Marlene.
wife. Yeah.
Wasn't she doing choreography for Janet Jackson?
Madonna. And Abdul.
Gosh.
Paula
It didn't really
Abdul.
translate to us, though.
It didn't translate to you.
It didn't
No.
translate to me.
To appreciate that, you need to pull up.
Man.
There's a shelter in the rain. God help me.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
But
We
that's-
tried our
let
best.
me say, that might be the only one that really worked. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I just remember there were like Land of Mercy was the most awkward.
Or when
Yeah.
it comes to
when it comes to living.
gosh.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
There was
there are-
like
I've
it's
blocked
like,
a lot
oh,
of that out,
please
guys.
don't make us do this. But then I remember Shelter in the Rain is probably the only one that actually, because it was like four top spinners, such a cool film.
Yeah. It really was. So I remember that.
Wings, remember it?
Oh.
Give me more. I was like, oh, please don't make me do
Okay, we're gonna move on. Those are painful memories for me.
I'm hurting.
Yeah. So I remember that tour. Did we take out Clay Cross and Kathy Tricoli on that tour?
Oh, was it that one? Yeah, I guess it was.
I think it was.
I think Greg Long did some dates too
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a mixture of people, but it was because remember we had the set that we used for the Ride tour was Amy Grant's old set.
Oh, wow.
Remember?
I
We
did
got
not remember
all
that.
of those.
I forgot
like
all
the
about
set,
that.
Yeah.
They repurposed it, but we inherited a lot of her staging.
When did Jackie Velasquez come out with us?
The first time or the second time?
The first time when
first
she's
time
15
was-
years old.
Yeah. And that was, I remember hearing her sing for the first time going, holy moly.
She just turned 45
she's
years
gonna
old.
be
That tells you
huge.
how.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
That's
scary,
it.
isn't
Oh,
it?
dude.
Yeah. I don't think we did that until, maybe during the Obvious tour, sometime during that.
Probably.
But
can't
we're getting
remember.
ahead.
yeah,
So
yeah, we are.
Yeah.
There's something we have to get to here in just a minute. So,
Yeah.
so after the ride was very successful. Then we did the Message.
Yeah.
So the Message was probably our most successful record because there are either 5 number one songs
It was
from that one. It
It
just
was
seems like
kind of the
everything that hit
pinnacle.
radio was just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And just some big songs on that album. And then we had the same manager. Mike Atkins was our manager at the time. And Point of Grace was on their way up.
oh yeah.
And so they were basically the female version of For Him. And we were For Him and For Her.
Yeah,
So-
that was the Catholic
Yeah,
version.
the Catholic version
Version
of
For
For Him. That's right. So we started that tour, and I'll never forget. We started the tour in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
At Iba Arena,
Forgot about that.
and that place was a madhouse.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that moment. To me, that's the biggest moment that I remember For Him, of walking out, and there's like 9,000 people
Yeah.
out there in that arena, and it was like, okay, here we go. And it was at the time, I think there was a season there. It was the biggest tour in Christian music.
That tour. Well, that tour. So many different promoters called it there were the Four Tops and the Spinners became synonymous with one another.
Yeah.
So they didn't book tours without the both of them.
Yeah,
Christian music kind of thought, well, I don't book For Him without Point of Grace and Point of Grace without For Him. So literally, our manager Mike Atkins had to say, hey, I think we need to not go into year 3 because we were doing year 2
And we were doing Christmas
and we were doing
tour.
Christmas together. And but Andy, you're so right and I remember my memory of that. And it's funny what you all remember because I just remember doing us just kind of sailing along with new songs, and then we did Window with a View. It was so lame, and I was leading, and I was like, "We will never do that song again." I did. I was like, "No, we're cutting that."
Some songs just don't
It
translate
didn't
on
that
the
song.
stage.
I was
Yeah.
like, why is the energy like being sucked out of the room right now while I'm leading the
Stay
song?
forever.
That's
Who's
funny.
at the wheel?
No, Kirk. Love Boomerang.
Man, love help me God.
Kirk, you have your
Boomerang.
list of songs that were
Goodness.
Jeez.
We had some swings and misses, but that's part of it.
Better.
But that was the tour that never died. Yeah, so we did almost 3 years of the For Him Point of Grace tour,
Yeah.
and it was fun seeing the girls be able to.
They were
I mean, they
amazing.
took off and really just came into their own through
You
those
remember
years.
the Circle of Friends, the version
I
of
do.
Circle
I
of
tell that
Friends
all
they
the
did
time.
in Dallas and Prestonwood?
Yep, I sure do. Michael
Yeah.
Hodge.
Michael, were we? Hi, Mike.
We love you, Michael. It's one of our favorite memories.
Okay, you're gonna have to refresh my memory.
Okay, well, I'm going to have them on a different podcast,
okay.
and I will definitely
Okay,
ask
you
them.
can tell that story because you need to
Yeah.
tell that story with them. That's not ours, but it was. We were all listening. We were like, "What's happening right there, out there,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now? Something's."
Oh, yeah.
Capo issue. So,
Yeah.
it's no big deal.
Well, I remember that the last night of one of the tours anyway. Friends? Their song Friends.
Yeah.
And they would show
Circle
them,
of Friends.
It was Circle of Friends. Yeah.
and they would show them photographs with different artists and that kind of thing. And so I called two of the guys that had done videos before us before, and I had them round up all of the Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, and all that.
I forgot about that.
And it was awful because they turned the lights on. And you couldn't see the video, man. I had all
Oh
this
no!
Keystone Cops,
They
the
knew.
whole
They
thing.
sniffed you out. They knew that was going to happen.
Oh my
They felt
goodness.
it. They knew it was coming.
The other tour that I think was really significant for us was Young Messiah.
Oh man.
And what was that, 93, maybe? 92, 93?
3 or 4 years in a row we did that.
Yeah.
5 years.
And so if you never saw Young Messiah was a Christmas tour, and there's an album out, the new Young Messiah. And we took, I believe they called us last minute, didn't they? Because the Gaither Vocal Band, is that
On
right?
the first one?
On the first one.
On the second one, we were definitely intended to be a part of it.
Right, because we did the album.
Yeah, but because the first one we did Every Valley
Yep.
Shall Be Exalted.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
then-
right.
And then, but the thing that we did on the new Young Messiah was
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours.
Trumpet Shall Sound.
Yeah, but it was, and that's when we first really became real good friends with Sandy Patty
Yep.
and Carmen and BB and Cece.
Mhm.
Wayne Watson,
Twyla Paris.
Norman
Wes
Miller.
King.
yeah, Norman Miller was the
Stephen
manager.
Curtis.
Stephen Curtis,
Yeah.
yeah. It felt like we were. It was. I don't want to say we were.
We were so busy before that, Andy,
Right.
that we didn't have a lot of. We didn't live in Nashville,
Right.
so it was For Him was always a little bit of a mystery to Nashville. They were like, those guys I don't know, That was when we kind of became, we are in Southwest Alabama, but we got to know them.
Yeah.
That's-
And so it
that's
was like
true.
being on the buses with our heroes. I mean, sitting having pizza and watching boxing videos with Carmen every night, or having a night off and going and hanging out with Michael English and Carmen and BB and
having breakfast with Ralph Carmichael.
Yeah.
Really?
Which was amazing.
You're going out to dinner, and we have a picture that with the whole table is Carmen, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Steve Green, Ralph, that whole group of people.
Mm-hmm.
that was really
that was
pretty
special.
amazing.
Yeah.
That was surreal for me.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of compilation records I'm really proud of that we did. The Streams album
man.
that The Only Thing I Need is on, being able to do a song with John Anderson, which I get that. I still have people to this day hear that song for the first time and go, wait a minute, you guys did a song with John Anderson? And I went, well, kinda. Like, what was it like in the studio with John Anderson? And
Yeah,
yes.
well,
I'm like, well, we don't really know
don't
because,
know.
We didn't mean it.
you know,
It's kind of crazy because when people think of that, they're like, so you don't know him? We're like, no, we don't. But the thing is, what I love the most about those two projects, Streams and My Utmost Versailles, because I love My Utmost too.
yeah.
Like, they're just, number one, Britt Bourgeois as a producer for Streams. The strings on that song alone, like the arrangements and just the production, it's just a beautiful album.
Yeah.
And then as well, My Utmost, I know Brown did that one.
Mhm. That was the only time we got to work
Only
with Brown
time we got
What was the
Bannister.
name of that song?
You Were
You Are
Holy.
Holy.
You Are Holy. That's right.
Mhm. Yeah. So those are things I look back on and go, like you said, Mark, we didn't as a group live in Nashville, so we didn't have that community, that typical Nashville artist community for those years, and it did keep us as a little bit of an outcast and a mystery. But I was always grateful to be included in a lot of those compilation records, because we got to know people a little bit more and do some tours and dates. Yeah. And to me, festival season always felt like a little bit of a class reunion, where we would, about the only time we would see DC Talk and run into the Newsboys and get to be on stage with all these people we were hearing on the radio. And we were like, we should know these people, but we really don't. And we would only run into them during the summer in festivals, and we get to be friends with them, and still friends with all those people today. I would say that if we put our phones together, we would have just about everybody in Christian music from the 90s and 2000s
pretty much
in our phone books.
Yeah.
But so we did 11 albums together. We did what, 2 to 3 in Truth, maybe 4 albums in Truth together if you include the Christmas album.
Yeah, that's true. We did 4.
And then 11 studio albums with Truth. But then, just like every career, I won't say there's an end, but there's a time when we just go, I think it's over for now. I think it's time to take a break. And I'll just raise my hand to say I kind of was the first one to throw the grenade into the room and go, I think I'm out. Yeah. So I want you guys to respond to this side of the story, because I think we have to talk about the end like we talked about the beginning. It's not as fun, but people need to know, because they ask us all the time, why'd you stop touring? Why are you not still together? So I felt like in around 98, 99, that God was speaking to my heart, saying, it's time to do something else. To me, what I didn't realize at the time, the first calling on my life was to be a worship pastor. And I was running from that. But God was just like, that's all right. I'll put you over here, and I'll train you, and push your skill set to a certain place and send you back into the church. And it was during the early 2000s when worship started to become a big deal, with Delirious and Matt Redmond and Tim Hughes and Hillsong. Chris Tomlin really started to take off. And I remember sitting down with you guys at dinner one night, just saying, hey, I just got to spit it out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I haven't got a church. I don't have a solo deal, but I think it's about time for me to move on. Yeah. And then from there, we just kind of had to figure things out. So how did you guys feel when that happened?
After the Point of Grace tours in we finished that up in 98.
Yeah.
I felt, although I didn't want to admit it, I felt this season is coming to an end. I didn't realize that's what it was, but now that I look back on it, I'm going, yeah, 98, there was something pressing on my heart going, okay, this was good, but I think this season is almost over.
And let me say this too. I said this earlier when we were talking about when we started touring, that we never took a break. Yeah. It was tour, make a record, tour, make a record for almost 16 years. Yeah. And we never really took time away to go, is there anything else we should be doing? Yeah. I mean, it was feeding the machine over and over. We had people on the payroll. Oh, sure. And we had booking agents and managers.
We built
you had a beast you had to keep feeding.
It was a company.
Yeah, it was a cash flow.
Corporation, yeah.
Yeah.
You're looking right at me.
I'm looking right at you, Marty. I want to hear your side of this.
Seriously, for me, I kind of go with it, whatever it is. I'm like my dad in that way. But really, when you said that at the table, I remember feeling a bit of my bottom just drop out. I felt just this, and maybe it was because I know we were all feeling what Kirk was saying, but your words pretty much grabbed the physical stake and hammered it in the ground. And when that happened, when you have anything concrete like that, and you try to avoid the reality of it, when that hit, for me, it was just like gulp, because that was right when Seth was born. and it was right after Bishop. Here I had 2 kids, 13 months apart, right? And I'm just thinking, man, you're gonna force our hands to have to look around to do something else. Wow. And I think the reason we did do the tour album, the pattern, it was established in truth.
Yeah.
And the thing with truth that hasn't been said, and this is by no means bashing truth, but it just the reality of it swung in experience emotionally from Disney World to Vietnam. I mean, seriously, it was such a vast, extreme palette of circumstances that we all had to learn how to adapt to. It made our lives, in a way, become codependent to that particular way of life.
Yeah.
And when we had no break, we had 2 weeks between San Antonio with Truth and Starkville, 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's right.
And boom, and we were off. So we still, the momentum, which is another subject, but momentum is an interesting thing. That kept going. It was so strong from Truth. And I mean, in defense of us from that, you're right, but we didn't know any better. And we became still codependent to a schedule, and we felt like we had to. So when you said that at the table, it was like I felt like a dummy in one of those crash test vehicles that hits that concrete wall, at 40 miles an hour. And it was just kind of like, wow, I have nothing to say right now.
Yeah. Oh, I could feel it. I remember that night vividly. Yeah. No, that was a different time.
That was a different time. That was a second time.
We can get to that in a minute. But yeah. What about you, Mark? I mean,
well, I kind of see it in 2 different pieces, because I remember the late 90s conversation, and then really nothing happened. Like, it's kind of like,
well, I didn't have any place to go.
Yeah,
it's not like I had this big machine built over on the side that I could just stop into.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
right.
But I
think I'm
it's your
coming to the end
nature,
here.
Andy, the way that you're wired.
Yeah.
Like we're all different. We all have different ways of processing, and it's the way that God built you, and it's kind of like you were just like, guys, I feel like there's something more, and you didn't even know. And then the thing is then you fast forward 6 years later. And then we're all sitting once again. And I remember we're sitting in North Carolina, and we're having, we're kind of showing up, and we've been kind of continuing the ministry for him. But I think for us, that next time is the one that I look at, and I'm like, more significantly, I feel like it's almost like that frog in the pot of water. We were all in that water together.
Yeah.
And the water kept getting hotter because we were all kind of worn out, because it's the accumulation of all of the years of truth, and then stepping into for him, and us really not even knowing how things were decided, and kind of looking at one another going, hey, do you like what you're doing? I mean, it was kind of like, we'd never even had those conversations.
Right.
It was like,
we were too busy.
And we were trying to raise a family, trying to be married, trying to be good husbands, trying to be good dads, trying to be good stewards of our gifts. And the thing is it's like I think even at that point in time, if we're very honest, I don't even know if we knew that we liked one another, because and we like each other now more.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like we kind of look back and go, hey, because I remember when I first met each of you guys, I was like, man, I really love you. You're a fun guy. You're cool. We ended up in this thing called For Him together, doing ministry. And like I said, I even know that more now because I serve in ministry on staff at a church. And I'm like, I am arm in arm with people that I have to accomplish things together. We were doing that. We were a band of brothers.
Yeah.
And we were like constantly going through spiritual warfare. Like, we didn't even consider that many times. We were just knowing that we were continuing to do the tour and stepping out there. And the one thing that we were always committed to was, hey, we're going to give an invitation and share the gospel. Like, the message mattered to us. And at the same time, it was like, I think we even individually didn't know where we were in our own personal lives. It's
Right.
like, because we were so busy being for
Right.
him.
That's right.
And truth.
And it was kind of, and from truth.
Mhm.
And it's like, I think we forgot actually how to, I want to say this because it wasn't like, for him wasn't this amazingly unhealthy thing, but we actually kind of showed up and did the job
Yeah.
there at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really forgot about how to be brothers.
Because we were good at it. And that sometimes
Yeah.
that's the curse, is
Yeah.
that you're so good at something, you
Yeah.
can just keep doing it. But where's the, to me, it was like, where's the meaning in it? Where are we growing to? And I think those are the questions we started to ask each other was, what is this going to become?
Yes, and my point would be, Andy, I don't know that it would have gotten better. Like, I think the thing is I think God gave us the exit because he loved each one of us and said, hey, thank you for serving for this season in this ministry and doing what you did and all that you gave. Because I think on the backside we look and go, hey, there was life post for him. And here's the thing that I said the other day to someone. They said, well, are you guys still for him? And I said, yes, same for guys. And I said, it's interesting. We love one another. We lived through that together. But it's kind of like we never went to the counseling session together to probably process all that we lived together.
Well, here's the thing.
But we love each other.
We didn't.
Right.
No, we didn't. But
Yeah.
the thing is we're kind of now going, wow, scratch my head.
We probably have more counseling sessions now with each other than we did at any time in those
Yes.
16 years.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
remember having that
Yeah.
meeting. We were in a restaurant and where we go, okay, here's the game plan. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to do this, this, and this. And at that point, it was for me because I realized that, okay, this is coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I think the rest of us did too. And we started repairing our relationships. I think
Yeah.
we started treating each other different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you realize, what are we taking away from this?
Yeah.
Am I taking away plaques on the wall
Yeah.
and dove awards and all that kind of stuff? Or am I taking away relationships of things that we built, stories and laughter and inside jokes and stories we could never even tell on this podcast that only we would find amusing and incredible. But since then, yeah, that was tough. It was tough on all of us.
Yeah.
And just to go, okay, what's next?
Well, we all did solo projects. Every
We
one of
all
us
did
released
solo projects. And I did one, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm like, got that out of my system.
Well, I think we would all say we didn't enjoy that as much as we did what we did together.
It was horrible for me.
No,
trying
I
to
didn't
be a
enjoy it.
solo artist.
I
was
felt
like,
very
I
alone on the
hate
platform
this.
when I went and did solo projects.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
tough.
It was awful.
I was
It
like,
was
man, I
tough.
miss my other guys.
Yeah.
And it was that even made me appreciate what we did even more so together.
Yeah, I agree. And then I just want to talk about where we all are now. So, Kirk, you finally got married. Thank God.
God had mercy upon my soul. Well, she was there all the time. I just didn't see it. She moved in,
We saw her.
Yeah,
said,
we saw her.
We're like, Kirk, what are you waiting on, man?
I know. I mean,
She's pretty. She's pretty.
I remember, and my mother reminds me periodically,
Yeah.
and so does she. What were you thinking? Of course, at that point,
It's that song that you and Marty never wrote, but you kept saying, "What in the world are you waiting for?" I remember. Remember that hook?
Man,
oh my God,
I didn't even remember that.
It was really more about Kirk waiting.
Yeah.
On,
Oh, that's right.
You
That's
just
right.
Didn't know the subject matter.
Wow. There was
all
the
the
prompt.
abuse.
I even know the melody that y'all have.
Really?
What in the world are you waiting for?
Well, finish it
Wow.
for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Finish it.
I can't. I don't. Mark's got
So
the. I
Marty,
have
Marty,
the memory.
so Marty, you're in Denver. Tell us what you're doing in Denver.
I'm teacher, high school, and
Well,
I'm
that's the
Minimizing it.
that's all right.
minimized version.
I am I'm an arts instructor for they call me the director of the recording arts, which is just the studio recording and songwriting. And there's several classes broken up with each of those, and it's an incredible high school. It's just a very unique thing. It's a God thing, and how they came to be, but very random how that happened. Sherry and I were in Franklin, and we lived there about 17 years. And man, I got a call out of the blue from this guy that just wanted to plant a church in Denver. I didn't know him, but he was good friends with Sherry's best friend. Very random. And out of Peoria, Illinois. And it was the weirdest thing, because I kept thinking church plant, mortgage, how does that work? And expensive Denver. But one day I just looked at Sherry and said, I feel like the Holy Spirit's given us a green light just to move to Denver. I know this is crazy. Sure enough, got the house ready, stuck the sign in the yard. 2.5 days later, it was under contract.
Wow.
At the fall of the market. This was 2010. And we drove out there, started the church, and then I met this guy named Bob Coleman randomly through our realtor. He's and got me hooked up with the director of the arts there at Valor, and we talked, and the rest is history. I saw where God orchestrated getting us out there. As you know, it's so hard just to get out there, especially with a family. And then while we were there, to stay there ready until that position came open.
Wow.
And yeah, and even my partner for the church plant told me, he said, dude, I don't know of anyone that could have sat down with pen and paper and wrote out that plan. That's
Wow.
a God thing. And then, he told me to think outside the box, and some things that we never experienced, unfortunately, in the industry, which is, they say, hey, this next album, think Toad the Wet Sprocket. Right? And then we go to mix, and it sounds just like the last album. Right? And with him,
That's funny.
he is the one who, this guy Ari just said he was used of God saying, think outside the box, go for it. And so I would, and he would say, I think you can go even further. I'm like, really? And God used that as a way just to help me take everything we're talking about and everything we've kind of grabbed through the years and just go here and give it to the next generation. And so that's what I do.
Wow. And Mark's, your story is not unsimilar.
No, it's very similar because it's mentoring and raising up.
Yeah.
And that's what Marty does. And it's like, because, and I love that, Marty. Like, I love what you're doing, because I see, like, I meet, like, I'm in Ohio this January, and this little girl comes up. She's like, I know Marty.
Oh,
Emma. She's like, I'm Valor. And I'm like, and it happens all the time. I meet the students that Marty raised up, and it's incredible. And so probably if Marty's more about raising up kind of that age group, which is more of the teenager kind of until they get to college, what I do right now is kind of, I get them after that. So it's kind of like I end up.
So you're at Gateway.
I'm at Gateway Church. And so, for a large portion of the time that we've been there 10 years. I was the worship pastor at our broadcast campus and oversaw kind of that team, and then helped with the artistry and the albums and the songwriting. And so, last year, I moved more into the central location to where I could focus completely on. We have this Spanish brand that we've kind of inherited just because all these Spanish artists moved there. And so it's like all of these huge artists with all these platforms. We just recorded a live album night before last. And it's like they all come together, even though they have their own individual ministries and large platforms. It's kind of like a who's who among Latin artists. And they become Gateway Worship Espanol. And so we released an album last year. And then Gateway Worship,
that's
all
cool.
the different artists that we have on there, within that. And most of those artists are.
And you're kind of an A&R director at this point,
I'm
too.
kind of
and you're
A&R
writing and
publisher and label services guy. It's everything I said I'd never do. I said I will never do that. I even said it like as recently as maybe 3 years ago. And it's like the Lord looks and goes, Mark, don't say never. And I love what I do. I love, obviously I love it because I have a son, I have a daughter-in-law. They're all involved in Gateway Worship as songwriters and leaders and artists. And so I see that, love that. But I'm so fortunate because it's like we have individual artists that we're signing. You know, we've got Michael Bethany, who's such a talented guy, and then we've got this Spanish artist, Armando Sanchez. So I really, Andy, you're right. I am an A&R guy. I have to admit it. Okay, God, I'm an A&R guy. But I approach it more from a pastoral, you know, perspective.
It's all of what I see for the shield. Both of you guys is
pastoral.
It's all of your worlds coming together. Like all of the things you've been. It's like God's been teaching you over the last 30, 40 years comes together in this little perfect in this little capsule that goes, this is what I've been training you for this whole time. I just think it's exciting. Guys our age, Kirk, you too. I mean, you've got a studio. You're playing me some stuff last night that you're working on your studio. That's incredible. I get to work with artists who are up and coming and do radio shows. And, you know, it just seems like, you know, God allowed us to kind of get out of our routine for a little bit, try some different things, learn some different skill sets, and then. But guess what? He says all that stuff you did, those 3 years in truth, those 16 years in for Him, I'm still using those things now. You take those things with you.
Nothing's wasted.
Nothing is wasted.
A lot of my clients are all for Him fans, and they're bringing their kids in and. The minister, I do a lot of demo work for ministers of music who are pitching their songs to do musicals and those kind of things. I get a lot of those. So I still run into and then through them, I run into a lot of the old people we work with.
And I think the thing too, like I would say this, and I know Marty's experienced this. You hang around a younger generation, you stay young. Because they kind of help you see the world, and they help you see current things through their perspective. And it's like, I think it's healthy because I think, and I know you do too, Andy. I mean, Andy, what about you? What are you like? I'm sorry, because people are going to listen to this and go, okay, well, we know with the three of that. What are you doing?
Oh, wow. Well, so I've been a worship pastor since full-time worship pastor since 2001. Yeah, so I helped plant a church in Orlando. That was my first thing away from for Him, and then in 2006, the thing that was kind of like the kind of that closing chapter on that time before Him was when I accepted the role as a worship pastor at Church on the Move in Tulsa. I was like, I have to do this full time. I can't split my time doing both. But since then, I coach and mentor worship pastors. I'm a consultant for churches. Have a radio show called Worship with Andy Chrisman.
I have to insert where you're saying. My wife and I had an anniversary a week and a half ago, and so we go out to eat at lunch. And the guy, if I tell you the restaurant, they know where it is. So anyway, the people come and sit behind us, right? So we're getting up to pay the bill, and of course I'm my father's son. I talk to everybody, right? And the guy asked me, well, what do you do? You know, what do you do? What do you do? Well, I have a background in music. He says, well, what'd you do? And I go, well, I was in a Christian group. Well, what's the name of the group? And I go, well, it was for Him. Oh, Worship with Andy Chrisman and Bluegill Restaurant.
Oh my God,
that's awesome!
Yeah,
wow.
That's been fun. It's been a really cool thing to kind of stay connected with modern worship music and get to interview artists and stuff. And then I have 9 young artists that are signing deals in Nashville that I mentor and get them vocally healthy and just basically spend time with them a couple times a month.
That's awesome.
And just kind of hold their hand a little bit as they're entering this thing that we have all done. And just be able to go, okay, be careful about this, think about this, and just be able to use all those things that we went through and survived and say, okay, get ready for this, because I want you to stand on my shoulders. I don't want you to start without any information. Stand on my shoulders in that way, where we left off, now you can take on and go that direction. So the opportunities are out there, and I love, but we're going to get to sing together tonight.
Yeah.
It's a little event here in Florida that we get together every year and do. We get to sing some of these songs again for the 3,000th time. And hopefully we get a lot
Hopefully
more
we'll
of these,
remember the lyrics
you know?
too. Hopefully.
Well, maybe we won't. I probably
doesn't
won't.
matter.
Pull
But,
the cell phone out. Yes.
yeah. But I just want to say thanks, guys, for doing this.
Fun.
It's been my dream to tell the For Him story, and I know we haven't even scratched the surface, but I think
This is volume 1 of 30.
this could be
Yeah,
volume one.
I was thinking that's funny.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But I just want to tell you guys I love you. You're my brothers, and anytime we can get to do this, it would be an honor to just sit and share these stories.
Amen.
Yeah,
Love you
amen.
too, bro.
Love you.
Yeah.
Love you
It
guys.
was a pleasure. Wow.